Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue straight on till morning. 2 arms. The heroine appeared above the jungle like a tattered on the breeze. Wendy had become just another one of the strange Neverland flying creatures, she realized. Had anyone, even her own parents, looked up and seen her? Well, they wouldn't have seen her. They would have seen a tan, lanky fairy thing without wings and strips and bandages of once blue cotton, performing some kind of unknown task within the realms of the magical land. And considering how many dead innocents she had interacted with and almost grown comfortable with, she thought she was well on her way to being accepted by the natives as just another weird flying creature. Well, maybe not by the first. They were rather cranky about all the newcomers and dreamers who changed their world. Who could blame them, really? Although she had figured out their trap, so maybe that according her a smidgen of respect. But unlike the endlessly cheerful and vicious full-time residents of Neverland, Wendy had hollows around her eyes from the constant flying, fighting, running, bleeding, strategizing, and worrying. Peter's shape could easily be distinguished among 3 palm trees on the beach. A tiny golden glow shone against one of the harsh tree-shaped shadows. Wendy tried not thinking of herself as a ragged, fat, fascist simile of a Greek god, but she did land as she could imagine one might, delicately, cloth whipping all around her, her arms raised, not for balance, but for effect. Immediately, the golden glow zipped up and surrounded her madly. Peter is hurting somehow. They're doing something to him or his shadow, like you said they would. Wendy saw what she had first looked like a lazy, reclining Peter was actually a taut-faced wan Peter, collapsing into his own skin somehow. He shivered on the burning beach, but had sweated through his shirt as if he were on the grip of a great fever. Sometimes he grimaced, eyes closed, and clenched his hands. "Oh my goodness," Wendy cried, rushing over and laying a hand on his brow. Tinkerbell didn't even object. He wasn't burning up. In fact, he was a little clammy. "Did you find them? Are they coming?" "Yes, though I'm afraid it will be a few hours before they get here. Are you managed to get any liquids into him?" Tinkerbell nodded and pointed to a leaf she had been using for just that. A puddle of pink juice lay among his veins. "Good, well, that's something." Wendy slowly collapsed on the sand next to them, exhausted and worried. The hard bark of the palm against her felt like black heaven, or at least something far softer than it actually was. She wiggled a bit to scare off any unicorn beetles. An opalescent one fell glittering to sand, and without thinking, she scooped it up and placed it back on the tree next to her. Her shadow stood up against the palm trunk, watching Peter with worry. "They're taking the Cenotaph Caves?" Tinkerbell jingled. Yes, do you remind me how you use those are sometime? Has Peter been like this the whole time I've been gone?" "Wendy, you're back," the ailing boy murmured, rousing a little upon hearing his name. Then his dreamy smile crumpled in a rictus of hurt. "Those terrible pirates," Tinkerbell wailed jingled. Well, we should give them what for directly," Wendy promised, summoning brightness into her features. The 3 settled in to wait for the pirates, or the lost boys, whoever came first. The sun beat down hard until it hurt to have the tiniest bit of skin exposed beyond the shadow of the palm trees. Waves of heat danced like spirits between the sand and the sea, the latter of which lapped appealingly against the shore and seemed endlessly far away. Hurdy-gurdy gnats droned and riffed their unending calls. Wendy reached out and squeezed Peter's hand when he went through a particularly bad bout of whatever was happening to him. Tinkerbell bought nectar or sap, or really, Wendy didn't want to think about the alternatives. Beetle milk? And carefully poured it into his mouth. But silence reigned over all of them. Even the fairies' jingles were absent. Wendy watched her shadow for a bit. She sat at the base of the tree, also apparently trying to keep cool. Really fat lot of good it did, you running off like that before, she murmured. We've all wound up at precisely the same place. Again. Her shadow shrugged. Maybe she was looking sheepish. Then she stood up straight and proud, not sorry at all. Tinkerbell raised an eyebrow one day. Are you actually yelling at your own shadow? But what good did she do? Wendy demanded, feeling a little childish. She rescued me. All right, yes, but then after she could have been a help, or I was so tired. And yet, here we are. You won. You beat the Thistlets in the first. We found Peter. But you're different now. Maybe she is too, in Neverland. Maybe drop it? Of course Wendy was different. She was beat up and in tatters, although sometimes she had flashes of feeling heroic. That was something. She considered the black shape standing on the tall sand, her arms crossed. Maybe her shadow wanted a chance to feel heroic too. Maybe that's all right, Wendy said slowly. I've wanted an adventure my whole life. Of course it follows that my shadow would. I suppose shadows have their own minds in Neverland. I'm not your master, merely your, solid object. Home, maybe? The shadow nodded eagerly. Whatever you are, I need you and you need me, and we will almost certainly need your help to rescue Peter's shadow. So, you mind staying around at least until we get the happily ever afters? Always you have a better insight into an aid fellow's shadow in distress than we do. She reached out her hand and tried to place in her shadows. It didn't really work, but the shadow patted the air near where the flesh and blood hand was. Tinkerbell sighed in relief. And then it finally happened. Tinkerbell was high in the sky on one of her lookout missions when she came back down like an angry bee, or thistlet. I see them! The pirates! They're not far off, rounding Bloody Neck. We should move into the jungle, Wendy said, getting Tinkerbell up. Tinkerbell looked skeptical. Don't worry, I told the Lost Boys what we should do came first. We'll keep an eye out on the beach in case they look for us there instead. Mollified, Tinkerbell fluttered around Peter's face, trying to wake him up. Tinkerbell, he said softly, I was just dreaming about you. The fairy face blushed in surprise and pleasure, but that didn't stop her from planting herself on Peter's chest and gently slapping his chin. Get up, the pirates are coming. We don't have reinforcements yet. I don't need no. Peter tried to stand up. Instead, he spun on his feet, falling backward toward the sand. But Wendy was there to right him. No, there you go, easy now, she said, throwing one of his arms around his shoulders. Let's just take it one step at a time. Despite his slender build, it was still hard getting going for the two across the sand. Wendy tried not to imagine baby turtles making their ungainly way to safety of the sea as predators swooped and salivated overhead. All three of them were terribly exposed, but to what she wasn't sure. If pirates can keep shadows as hostages and bees can steal bits of time, Wendy murmured to herself, who knows what other horrible things in Neverland are on the side of evil. When the moist air of the jungle finally hit her nose and lungs, Wendy nearly collapsed in relief. Here, sit down, and we keep an eye on the beach, Wendy said, settling Peter on a soft tuffet of ferns which she hoped weren't carnivorous or itchy. Tinkerbell just hovered back and forth around her beloved Peter, not saying anything, so Wendy assumed they were fine. There was a ruby fruit bush covered in the voluptuous red fruit. They were small and not quite the right color yet, but they were fairly juicy. She cracked one open and tried to give a piece to Peter. Bleh, it's not ripe, he cried, spitting it out. Stop being such a baby. It's all we have now. Feh, he opened his mouth, reluctantly to be fed more. You're welcome, Wendy said dryly. Wendy tugged on her sleeve, pointing to the jungle. Is it the Lost Boys? Wendy asked with excitement. But bouncing slowly through the bushes with great determination was strange and familiar. Another glow. quickly resolved itself into Thorn, who landed and strode through the leaves like a fearless king and giant. You came! You came, Wendy cried at the same time. Then she blushed. She wasn't supposed to have known about the other family. He gave her a knowing smile and the slightest wisp of a bow. Someone gave the call of aid. Only someone with no honor at all would fail to respond. Tinkerbell looked at the empty air around him and raised an eyebrow skeptically. None of our kin will reveal themselves near humans, Tinkerbell. You know you are the exception. And you also know it is call of the aid of the fairies, not humans. You don't seem to be in trouble, so I can only assume it is your friend Peter again. Or perhaps the mighty warrior human here. Wendy didn't think she had it in her to react to a man's, no matter how tiny he might be, blandishments. But certainly mighty warrior wasn't the normal sort of pretty pat fed to girls, and it sounded genuine. That's why she felt a blush, she decided, and an exhaustion accounted for her weakened knees. The pirates are coming for him, Tinkerbell said. In this state, we will surely get rid of him. I believe Peter got Hook last time and left him without a hand, Thorn countered. Turnabout's fair play, wouldn't you say? Yes, but this time they are coming for all of Neverland, Wendy interrupted him as politely as she could. No, they really are. It's just another one of Peter and Hook's games. The first confirmed it. Once he has Peter, his plan is to destroy everything as a sort of payback, and then leave. What? That's mad, Thorn jingled, horrified. I don't disagree. Peter crumpled up, whispering and breathing too quickly to be cried out. Wendy grabbed his hand and squeezed. Tinkerbell looked bleakly at Thorn. See, they have his shadow captured in a strange golden cage on their ship. I think they're torturing it somehow. Hurting Peter. Black magic? The warrior fairy frowned. The tip of his long brown ear seemed to quaver in thought, or maybe it was a stray breeze. His hand brushed the hilt of his sword almost thoughtlessly. And I'm going to stop it right there. I'll see you later.